I just sliced my card in half. Yes, you heard me right. I had ready-made card and I didn't like it, so I chop it in half and turn it into two cards. Hello and very warm welcome everyone, it's Marta here. Today's video is the prime example of that just because you are not happy with the project or you had some vision in your head but it didn't work for you, it doesn't mean that you have to go away from your desk unhappy with the card you created. Same here, I had this idea, and once I finished the card, I wasn't pleased with it. So instead of the one, I turn it into two cards. I hope this is gonna be interesting for you. Now, my friends, I'm starting from a card base. This is just a cheap watercolor paper, which I'm buying in Action, and these are coming in those like a blocks. So I separate two pieces. I don't know why. I wasn't even planning to create two cards initially. That was one card idea, but I always like to keep the second piece on hand just in case I need to cut out some elements or something like that. So I've turn it into the card base. I've just cut it in half and fold, and now I am cutting three strips of this scrap paper. This is my own design. This is actually the freebie which is available on my Buy Me a Coffee page, and because I was creating some cards out of it and I had some leftover scraps, I thought this is gonna be looking nice. So I've decided that if I cut the strips to 2.5 inch wide, which is like 6 centimeters, they will be looking nice as a tree panel on the card. I'm planning to create the flat card to go into the envelope. So instead of adding extra bulkiness with some foam tape, what I like to do, I'm grabbing my stitching tool and I'm just giving this fake stitching line. This automatically not only add this additional special touch to the card, but it will also give it plenty of dimension, even though I will be adhering these elements flat without any foam or any sort of element to rise it up. So here you can see I have this idea for the wedding card, which will contain those three panels. And then I am looking for some additional elements, and I found this circle which was like freehand uh, cut with scissors, and this is the part of the wedding paper, and I thought this one will be looking nice as the focal point. And initially I grabbed this watercolor paper to cut some frame, but then I just remembered that the other day I was playing with those paper doilies, and luckily I really like that those paper doilies, they are kind of like a milky color, a little bit like off-white, so they are matching perfectly with the watercolor paper. And here I'm also adding additional sentiment which says on your special day, and to match it up with the rest of the card, I am placing this sentiment on top of the watercolor paper to give it additional extra like a little frame around, so this will make it matching. And this is especially worth doing when you work on ivory paper or on some cream color paper. I think it's just looking nicer when you also have this little frame around your sentiment. So here I am grabbing additional 2 layers of these doilies, and with the third one, which I will adhere on the back side because it's a little bit crinkled, I am having this more kind of a thick element which is looking like a paper, more like a paper, because these doilies are quite thin. So I am just making sure I'm lining it all together so it's looking nice, and that way I have this fabulous like a element to add underneath my focal point. And this is a great solution for those of you who doesn't have the access to die cutting machine. And because I already have some stitching line on my 3 panels on the card, I've decided to create more cohesive look by adding the stitching line around this circular focal point as well. Plus, this will also disguise any imperfection. This circle was freehand with my with scissors, so it's not as perfect and as neat as that would be looking after using dice. Here I also grabbed the ruler and I'm raising the edges of the paper, and you could see I accidentally cut my finger. So be careful when you do that, or use your bone folder. And this is also another way to add the dimension to your card, because you have this teeny tiny bit like a rolled edge, which is also looking really nice. So here, this is kind of the idea and I had in my head for today's card, to have this circular focal point on, and then 3 or 4 panels. Initially I wasn't sure, but I've cut 3 panels, and this would be the idea for super quick card. And of course this will be looking really nice if you will complete the card like that. And here I'm trying to dress up this card. I had a little like thinking, I was wondering, shall I put the sentiment on the top or right next to the circle, or maybe like on the bottom? So I'm trying all different configuration, and I'm just keeping it in the video so you could see like yourself that you can create 2 or 3 different cards with the same idea, just by placing the elements in the different areas. And here I have some extra elements, and this is all included in this I do in blue paper collection, which is a freebie on my Buy Me a Coffee page. And you can fussy cut them if you have the access to the printer. You can print them out and fussy cut them, and that will give you lots of different elements to play with. And they're not only wedding, because the flowers, the presents, the butterflies you can use for so many other occasions as well. So here I'm kind of trying to figure it out how to place my elements, and after that I kind of know where I'm going with this card. So I've decided that this is the right time to adhere my panels on top of the card. So I am attaching each of these panel with the liquid adhesive, and I am starting from top and the bottom, leaving the third one as the last one, so that way I can kind of make sure they nice and space evenly. And look on this dimension, this is just paper adhere flat on the card base, but how dimensional these elements looks like by adding this stitching and rise edge elements to the paper. Here I am adhering this focal point element, which is this lovely like a wedding couple under the canopy, and I'm just trying to see where to place them. And eventually I decide that I'm gonna put the focal point towards the bottom left side, and then my sentiment will be on the upper right corner. To add some additional dressing, I am placing one piece of the floral image underneath my sentiment, and then to help me adhere my focal point, I am using a couple bits of the foam tape. Now, because this is a foam tape I am buying in hardware store, I always like to back it with some hot glue, just so I will secure it in place, and I'm sure that it will stay like that. And here I'm also adding a little bit of the liquid hot glue, and that way I have this room to wiggle, make sure I'm placing it and position it as I like it. So once I'm happy with it, then I'm starting to building up my composition, and for that I'm using 2 champagne glasses, couple of the flower elements, and I'm also having some presents and 2 like a wedding bands together. I think all these elements are really adding this nice special touch, and I'm pretty much like this card. But one thing I can say, I think this design would be looking much better if there would be like a more white piece for the focal point. Like for example, in this ephemera piece there is another like a wedding couple right on this white like a background, and I think this one will be looking way better, because having this darker focal point on top of, well, it's not dark, it's light blue color, but it's genuinely like it's not the white piece in the focal point. I think it's just this is what ruined the expectation I had for this card. But in generally, I think I really like this design, but I just think that the focal point could be a little bit lighter, so that way it will be standing out a little bit better. But we are here learning every day, even though it doesn't matter whether you make cards for 5, 10, 15, 20 years every single day. Whenever you create something, this is a great learning point, because we are making observation. Like here, I almost complete the card, and as more as I was dressing it, I was like, something is not right here. I mean, I had this such a nice idea in my head, and the overall composition is looking nice, but I am missing something here. I wasn't like, the more I was dressing up this card, the less I was feeling it. Like this is a good job, and because I always like to kind of create my cards the way I would like to receive it. So I'm always trying to, make the best. To give the best from myself. I'm thinking like, no, I cannot leave it like that. So as soon as I complete this card, I was just like, no, I need to do something with it. So here you can see I am making this desperate move, and I'm just chopping it. I've decided to cut out this top portion with white sentiment, because I think this was the part which was making the rest of the card looking too heavy. So I just trim it. And one thing, you just have to be careful, because I'm trying to save up this top portion as well. So I'm not going to be cutting this little panel. And once I trim it, I think the card, it was gaining the balance back as soon as I remove this top bit. I've cut a little bit too much, like from the top, so I'm just trimming this piece a little bit extra, so I have the same border on the top as on the bottom. And then I'm just reaching for another sentiment. I think this one says on your wedding day. So that will be matching with the card. And then I will also back it up with this watercolor paper. uh, I don't know, let me know what you think about this idea. Definitely stay tuned till you see both cards together, because I think this is turning up really nice. As soon as I chop the top part of this card, as I'm saying, I think the cards just gain the balance back. If that would be like a white color focal point, like the other couple, which was standing on a white background, I think it would be looking way better. But because I already had this piece and I was trying to create something using the scraps I already had, so this is why I use this picture I was already having in my scraps. So here I am trimming this sentiment, and I leave it a little extra long piece from this watercolor paper, so that way I could cut this nice banner. And I think it's just adding this additional elegance whenever you have those like a fishtails effect or things like that. Now, once you have two layers of the paper, be very gentle once you curve it, so that way you're not gonna break the fiber on a sentiment, and you're not gonna end up with this ugly crease. I rather prefer to do it with the very little pressure and repeat the same like a curling motion few times, rather than just squeeze it too hard and then end up with the crease. So here I am adding the sentiment on the bottom, and I think this card is turning really nice. Like once I complete it, I think it's just looking way better than it was looking when it was like a larger panel card. So here, of course, I cannot waste this piece, because it's already there. I already spent some time, work and glue to adhere this to this paper, so I thought like, no, I cannot throw it away. So for that, I am actually making I am aiming to turn it into just a spare card. And let me know once you see both cards which one is actually the better one you like, because this one was totally unintentional. Like this was this kind of like a accident on work, because I didn't like the first card, like the way it was looking. This is why we end up with two cards instead of the one. So here I am creating the card base for this card, and I also grab additional piece with the from my scrap drawer with this white color paper, and then I am trimming it to add as the panel on my card. And because I think this is such a nice design as well, and this will be a great idea for quick cards whenever you need like a quick birthday, wedding. You just need a strip of the design paper and add some white panel on top. And if you have access to some embossing folders, that's even better. You can emboss it to give it some additional elegance. Here you can see I am adding a piece of the vellum on top of the white paper, and the only one reason is that when I reach for this embossing folder, I've noticed it wasn't super clean. The last time I was using it, I was smearing it with some dark ink. So in order to protect this white area of the paper, I thought I need to add something thin there, and I actually had this tracing paper on hand, so this is why I use it. No other reason apart from the fact that my embossing folder was a bit dirty, and I was trying to make sure that this piece will come white without any dirty stains or anything like that. So here I am adhering this piece on top of my card, and I've decided to use this card as a top hinge one. The other one was opening to the side, but I do find that top hinge cards are standing nicer. I don't know if it's just me. Let me know in the comment. Are you preferring top hinge or side hinge card opening? I think that because we are creating the handmade cards, they often are put on a shelf or on a mantle or on some sort of a display, and that it's always better to think like how the card will stand nicer. And to me, top hinge is always the way to go, because even if the cards start like kind of bending a little bit, it will still present nicely. But if you have this like a side open card and you put it on a mantle or on a shelf, the top part of it, this like a right upper corner, start bending, and it doesn't look as neat. So this is why I always prefer to create top hinge cards, even though not always, it's not always the case. Sometimes the design is kind of deciding for us what type of the cards we are creating. So here, to finish off this card, I am adding a couple of the butterflies and three pearls, little pearls on each corner. And I think this card is turning even better, maybe because in my taste, I like this like a white open spaces on the cards. It's always this clean and simple look is to me way more like elegant, in my opinion. This is why I prefer this card even better, and I'm super happy that I wasn't pleased with the card at the beginning, because that way I turn it into two beautiful cards, because I still think that the first card, it's looking really nice as well, and I like them both way much better than the card it was when it was like a whole one piece. So let me know what you think about this video. If you like it, please don't forget to say hi in a comment. You don't have to write elaborate messages, but if you like that is super awesome. I love to reading your stories, your messages. This is always such a heartwarming for me. But please say hi and let me know where are you watching from. There's lots of new friends joining my channel regularly, like every day someone is joining. So please introduce yourself. I love to know a little bit more about you as well. Here is final look of the card. Look on this doily. I really think it's just looking beautiful, and the second card as well. Let me know which one is your favorite, and of course don't forget to sign up to my channel, click the notification bell so you'll be notified on the next video coming. That will be me for today. I'm wishing you all a fabulous day. Stay blessed, and bye bye.